day Raila Odinga led his battalion of hooligans, goons, and looters in wreaking mayhem upon sections of the city of Nairobi and a few other towns, mostly in Nyanza. Under the pretext of peaceful protest and demonstration, Mr. Odinga coordinated and oversaw violent confrontation, looting, and destruction on a vast scale, preventing people from going to work, stopping education and other public services, and paralyzing business operations. The destruction, loss, and damage arising from Mr. Odinga's chaotic activities will surely run into tens of billions of shillings. Mr. Odinga has indeed indicted himself as an economic terrorist and saboteur, a serial hypocritical liar and failed leader, whose insatiable greed for power through any means necessary, including the shedding of blood of Kenyans, is unmatched. The hypocrisy, lies, and failure. The lies. It is evident that Mr. Odinga's peaceful demonstration, in quotes, were neither peaceful nor were they demonstrations. Instead, they degenerated into looting sprees, orgies of mindless destruction, running battles with law enforcement officers, and intimidation and terrorism of other Kenyans to stop them from carrying on with their work and life. Lie number 2. The principal reasons offered by Mr. Odinga for organizing and implementing anarchy on such a tremendous scale are the cost of living and the 2022 election, which claims was stolen. Yet, as recently as June 2022, Mr. Odinga was the government's foremost defender, attributing the rising cost of living to factors beyond the government's control, which also affected other countries. As regards the election, Mr. Odinga did not invest half as much effort and seriousness into his campaign as he did in defending the Jubilee government, or as he has done in organizing and supervising large-scale economic sabotage throughout the country. Moreover, Mr. Odinga's so-called peaceful demonstrations were a transparently disingenuous campaign of large-scale urban banditry and nothing else. Yes. No petition was delivered to any government office as promised. There was no march or delegation to State House as promised. Not unless Mr. Odinga lost his bearing and searched for State House or Harambe House in Nairobi's Mathare and sections of Eastlands, these orgies of mindless chaos were conducted on the basis of a blatant lie. Hypocrisy. It is obvious that Mr. Odinga's actions have nothing to do with the reasons he has given, and everything to do with his well-known post-election routine, whereby he uses the threat of post-election sabotage and marks action to extort power-sharing arrangements with the government of the day. It is also a continuation of Mr. Odinga's propensity for violent attempts at capturing power, which began in 1982. It is a demonstration of Mr. Odinga's contempt for democracy and the rule of law, constitutionalism, as well as peace. Times are indeed hard, and Kenyans are trying their best to get going. Anyone making life so much more unbearable through selfishly motivated political violence is unlikely to be viewed with much understanding. Moreover, as demonstrated, Mr. Odinga's arguments about the cost of living contradict his earlier position and are unsupported by the facts of prevailing market prices. His agitation has to do with subsidies that were allocated under the pretext of cushioning Kenyans from high prices, which in fact were embezzled by Azimio hardship regime leadership in one of the country's most scandalous thefts. The failure. Mr. Odinga's criminal escapades are desperate futilities. He does not enjoy the support of the entire Azimio constituency or Kenyans in general. There were no demonstrations or protests in counties of the Central, Rift Valley, Western, Eastern, Northeastern, and Coast region. ultimately, only Kisumu bore the brunt of the criminality aside from goons mobilized by ODM MPs to terrorize poor mama bogas. There were no demos in Siekuru, Yeshogo, or even Daragwa, where some of the Azimio leaders come from. It is quite evident that some regions require to emancipate from the Odinga yoke and slavery of being used as pawns for self-preservation of a single individual's thirst for power. So questions to Mr. Odinga are the following. Besides Mr. Odinga's reasons and actions beg the question, how does a disrupting campaign of looting and violent mayhem address the cost of living? Why actually didn't he demonstrate before the elections when unga was costing 230 shillings? But now he's demonstrating when it has come down to 170. That is hypocrisy.
Hypocrisy.
How does subjecting hard-working Kenyans to hardship and causing enormous losses to traders and businesses improve the cost of living? When Odinga and his Azimio partner left government at the end of the hardship, the cost of a packet of unga was between 230 and 240. It is now ranging between 170 to 200. Isn't it basic arithmetic that the prices are coming down? The Hardship Brothers Unholy Alliance. To Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta, we have one message for you. When in a hole, stop digging. We are only beginning to get to grips with the insane magnitude of embezzlement, looting, murder, abuse of office, and sheer impunity that took place during the 5 years of the hardship regime. As we do so, we begin to understand your desperate resolve to sabotage all accountability and Kenya's return to physical sanity, financial stability, accountability in governance, and economic health. You will fail. The violence, chaos, looting, and destruction are also aimed at distracting the country from investigating the shameless siphoning of public funds, crimes against humanity perpetrated through extrajudicial killings and forced disappearances, abuse of office, and state capture that enabled large-scale corruption and impunity committed by Mr. Odinga's sponsor and co-conspirator and hardship co-principal, Uhuru Kenyatta. This will fail and the truth will be known. Police action commendable. To the Kenya Police, we salute you for having quickly come of age and for rising to the occasion. The President's action to restore fiscal autonomy to the service is paying the anticipated dividends of efficiency and professionalism. We commend you for doing your best to keep Kenyans and their livelihoods safe and secure. We urge you to enforce the law firmly and bring all perpetrators of the criminal mayhem committed at Mr. Odinga's behest to account. They must be charged for every stone thrown, property looted, goods destroyed, and persons injured, no matter who they may be. It is also time to raise the bar and make Azimio and ODM fully accountable for the injury, loss, and damage occasioned by the rioters' thuggery they mobilized on the pretext of constitutionally protected demonstration. We urge a reckoning of the damages and the speedy accountability in conjunction with the registrar of political parties. Finally, it is time to confront a ridiculous predicament that has remained unresolved for a very long time. The government must determine once and for all if Mr. Odinga is above the law. If he is above the law, there is no further purpose in asking anyone else to obey the law. If, on the other hand, the government determines that Mr. Odinga is not above the law, it must activate all appropriate mechanisms to bring him to accountability without further delay, because justice must be done. That time is now or never. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think the leadership can add more. Yeah, and the SG.
I go first?
Yes.
Okay. I join the rest of my colleagues in saying three quick things about yesterday's unfortunate events in our country. Number one, I wish to commend the restraint of the Kenya Kwanza supporters. I know many of them watched with utter shock and dismay as their lives were unnecessarily interrupted. They could not go about their businesses, their children could not go to school, and many other duties that they could not go about because of the incessant, ugly behavior of ODM goons that they reign terror in this city and few parts of the country. I have seen messages from many of them to these leaders that are behind me here, asking them, up to when shall we allow these people to continue to blackmail us and stop our day routines with reckless abandon? I wish to plead with them that kindly allow the government of the day time as we sort this issue for once and for all. Never again shall Kenyans continue to live under Mr. Odinga's blackmail, for which he is rewarded after every election. This administration has said this is the final time, this shall never happen again. Secondly, I wish to join the rest of my colleagues in celebrating our police officers who, despite a lot of provocation from ODM goons, you saw police officers innocently standing in stifling hot sun, being hunted like dogs by ODM mandarins. But they kept their calm, they never shot anybody, they peacefully dispersed the crowds. We want to tell our police officers that is what we expect. The only challenge that we want to give to the police is that those looters that are publicly known, those that have been captured on cameras, breaking up meetings, stoning people's vehicles, going into business premises, we want to see them arrested and arrested right now. The leaders that have been accompanying them into these demonstrations, they also need to be arrested and brought to book. But we celebrate the good work of our police officers. We know you're working under very difficult circumstances. It was not difficult for you to shoot some of the people that were clearly provoking you. But you kept your calm and you maintained peace and order and protected people's property. We celebrate you as our police officers. That is what we expect of you. We hope that we shall continue to hold firm despite all that intimidation and threats that is coming from the Azimio side. Lastly, is to the great people of Nyanza. We celebrate you also because you largely remained peaceful. Save for a few goons that were hired by Odinga through his ODM MPs. Many of you kept your calm. You went about your business. You are sending messages and pleading for help, saying, even you in Nyanza, you are tired of this blackmail. And let nobody lie to you that the only way through which you can get development is through a handshake via Mr. Odinga. That is a lie. We give you an assurance that President William Ruto is a fair man. Every region of this country will enjoy the fruits of development with or without Mr. Odinga. In any case, we have come to learn that he only uses you to ascend to power, but when he gets there, there is nothing to show for it. Take an example of the time during which the handshake regime was in power. There is nothing of substance that can be pointed out in Nyanza and shown that they gained this by being under the handshake government. In fact, many of the projects that were put there, Mr. Odinga ended up looting those projects. An example is the Soin Koru Dam, where close to R1 billion shillings was paid to the contractor. But if you go back to that project on the boundary of Kericho and Kisumu, there is nothing to show for it. Mr. Odinga disappeared with that particular money. Therefore, let them not lie to you that the only way you can get development is by picketing and throwing stones so that he forces his way into government. All he is looking for is an opportunity for him and his family to loot this country. Do not allow him. Keep calm and know that you are part of Kenya. You will enjoy every right like every other citizen.